So this is the life skills video on banking. Kind of goes along with the budgeting, but this is more specific to banking.
Simple banking.
Simple banking, yeah.
We're not talking about cap rates and ROI.
No.
Net worth.
We're talking about checking accounts and savings accounts. How they work, how to set them up. So eventually you're going to need a checking account and a savings account. If you're following your budget, if you haven't watched the budgeting video, watch that one first. Because you're setting aside money every month in a savings account for future.
Long-term investment.
Yep.
You're going to make your money work for you.
So to set up a checking account and a savings account, most banks will require around $50 to set them up. You go in, they'll deposit the $50. They just need something in the account. So go to the bank, find the banks that don't charge you any monthly fees on your checking accounts, and get you one of each set up.
You get a card in each one?
Sometimes. You can talk to the bank
They're
about
handy.
that. Yeah. Keep track of how much money you have in the accounts. You can do it online. Almost all the banks have an app now.
And we're not talking about credit cards.
No.
We're just talking about the
Talking about
debit
debit
cards.
card.
And make sure you don't get the override.
Right. Don't get overdraft protection on your checking account.
If you run out, they
Make it-
refuse to debit it.
Right. Make it to where your debit card doesn't work if you don't have enough money in there. It will save you trouble in the long run.
Go in and understand banks are your friend. They're going to keep track of it. You're going to treat them right. They're going to build your credit for you. And
Right, and
eventually, you'll probably get a loan through this bank.
They want to help you. Saving accounts, again, are for your future expenses, for your long term. You want to talk about credit cards real quick?
Don't get them.
Don't have them.
At this level, I mean, until you're way down the road and you're very in control of your expenses, don't have credit cards. Just
Yep.
don't have them. Do not have them.
You don't need to be able to spend money you don't have.
And that's a big habit of we've already dealt with several people
Right.
in this life pattern, and you just, if you don't have it, big Christmas presents are okay. You do not ever have to buy a nephew or niece a big Christmas present. You do not ever
you don't have the money.
to buy a big Christmas present. If it's predicated on material things, that's inaccurate anyway, right?
Right.
Don't do it.
So if you have credit cards, consolidate them, get them down to one payment, and get it paid off as quickly as possible. A lot of debt consolidation companies will help you do that. They'll negotiate on your behalf to get those interest rates and or the balances down. But get them paid off, cut up the cards. If you have cards tied to your online shopping accounts, take them off. Cut up the cards. You don't need them.
Auto pay your bills?
Auto pay your bills. It cuts out your late fees and makes sure they get paid. Just make sure you have enough money in that account.
So keep an
okay.
eye on it. You know,
Yeah.
you might keep an eye on it. Check it on the 10th of the month. Check it on the 20th of the month. Just make sure that you're doing the right thing. It comes back down to self-determination and self-discipline. If you've got it, you will be successful.
Yep.
And you will eventually have this money work for you, and that's when you begin to accumulate wealth. If you don't have just a little bit, even enough to start this, then it's going to be a really tough life. It's too bad, but it just comes down to that much, just a tiny bit of self-discipline, a tiny little bit of it.
Another major financial area is cars. Let's talk about cars for just a second.
Cars. Buy cheap but reliable. We believe in buying cars that are at least 10 years old and about 80,000 miles.
Yeah. eBay is really a great
89,000
place. Craigslist. Buy cheap. You don't need a big fancy car.
And I'm not sure this is the one that I'd correct because it doesn't have the tax tags, title,
Yeah, that was-
insurance,
that was
tires.
on the other one.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I've already badmouthed
Yeah.
cars. I'm going to badmouth them again. At this level, when you're just beginning to be successful,
You may not need a car.
you probably don't need a car. Now, if you have a family and you have, the thing I've learned also, dealing with a lot of people already in your situation, there's excuses. Well, my wife and my kids, and I need to shuttle around. But depending on where you can get an apartment and live close to this place for 6 months or a year, then you can jump into a car you pay
You're ahead.
$10,000 for? No, not quite.
Yeah.
4, 5, 6,000 eventually
cash.
in a year or so.
Right.
Pay cash. Don't let them finance
Right.
you out again because you don't need something else coming up on you every month. Go for a bicycle. Go for the bus system.
And buy a cheaper car than you can afford,
Right.
if you can.
And get a spare
Save
tire.
money
Don't go around
anywhere.
on 4-ball tires.
Yeah. Have a spare.
Just ran into somebody today. Get one spare tire and you can have 4-ball tires because you're still okay if one pops.
And that kind of goes into maintaining them. Make friends with a mechanic.
Right.
A neighborhood mechanic, a relative who's a mechanic, somebody who lives in your apartment building.
And don't
very
lean
near
on
you.
them. Don't always be leaning on them. Hey,
Yeah.
I need you to come swap out my thing again, my
Right.
filter. They're going to be like, I'm done with it. So you got to pay them something.
Right.
But it's really better not to have a car when you're really getting your life turned around. I'd say the first year, maybe 2 years. Get used to not having a car.
But once you get one, do it cheap,
Yep.
but reliable. A lot of guys are fair mechanics. A lot of them aren't quite as good as they might portray. But
And
You
when
can do a
do-
lot. Check your own fluids, check your tire pressure, make sure
Right.
that they're all well inflated.
And that's all kind of common sense. It's again, are you going to do it? Are you going to follow up on it? Are you going to remember these things? Are you going to remember to check your bank account? When you're trying to get yourself secure and less stressed, these are all things that make a lot of sense that only come about when you're actually determined and you're willing to put yourself through some self-discipline, which is not tough. Develop a new habit in your life. That's what's tough.
When you do have a car, remember you drive more than you think. It costs money every time you turn that key. Every time you take that car somewhere,
time.
it costs you money.
Your tire's wearing out. You're going to blow an
So-
engine. You're going to get a traffic ticket.
Be efficient.
Insurance.
Prepare your trips. Say, okay, I got to take the kids to school, then I'm going to go to the grocery store, and do all of it as much as you can. Do it together, and do as few trips as possible.
Make it efficient. Combine your trips.
Yep.
You know, everybody's going to do this together, and you don't just racing into town every time you think of something.
Yep.
That's a huge one.
And prioritize your debts. Get your stuff paid off. Pay off your cards. Go to your banks. Your local banks are great resources. They'll love to walk you through the process of how a checking account works. There's a ton of tutorials online. Crownfinancial.org. I know we've mentioned them in one of our other videos.
You're
Great
welcome.
resource.
Call us too.
Yeah, sure.
Call us.
Great
Get a hold of Real
resources.
Church, and we're happy to help you figure this out. And we try to keep these as short and sweet, and keep the seconds that you're listening to us sacred because we respect your time
But you
So-
can be successful. It just takes a little time.
and determination.